The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate being here today. On November 25th, I asked a question of this House, the government in this House, about the repeal of the carbon tax. And it was based on what was happening around the world as the world's economies became more stressed due to the economic insecurity brought about by higher energy prices around the world. And I got a response from the Associate Minister of Finance. I don't know why he has that title, but he's a member for Edmonton Centre, and his song and dance in this House of Commons was a little bit of an embarrassment, and I've been told that many times by Canadians that have watched the actual exchange. And I'll apologize to them that that's what question period has become at this point in time, where people actually don't get answers to real questions that are asked. But let's be serious. I'm going to ask the Parliamentary Secretary that's going to respond to my question tonight. The world is facing a CO2 energy problem here based on CO2, and they're all withdrawing their CO2 taxes and actually giving money to their citizens and their industries to deal with the energy insecurity that's happening around the world because they're short of energy. And this started for a number of reasons. But the costs have gone up. Total subsidization in Europe at this point in time over the last year has amounted to over 800 billion euros. That's not what they've collected from carbon taxes. That's what they're subsidizing citizens for their energy expense at this point in time because the energy costs have gone so high. So withdrawing taxes and actually subsidizing their citizens. Canada's on a different course where we're actually going to increase energy taxes on Canadians. This is exemplified probably the most by Germany, who had a policy called Energy Wind, and that is a dramatic failure. It was a dramatic failure because the whole thing about renewable energy, at times it was only producing about 2% of the electricity required in Germany. The rest was coming from fossil fuels, primarily coal, a tiny bit of nuclear, but a lot of gas, and that was doubling down on their gas. 80% of it was going to come from the Nord Stream pipelines from Russia. Of course, when the war happened, that supply disappeared. So, cap in hand, Germany comes to Canada this past summer and asks Canada to fill their needs. Well, what does our Prime Minister say? He goes, there is no business case for natural gas delivery from Canada. Well, immediately contradicted by every business leader in Canada. The end result, of course, is Germany goes and buys their long-term natural gas from Qatar, who is one of the world leaders in this, one of the countries that has actually outpaced Canada in developing this greener energy source to coal. I will note that many countries are going back to coal now, which is much more punishing to the environment than natural gas. Japan arrived here just last month and said, can you please get us some more natural gas because we need it in our energy mix. We're trying to decarbonize with more natural gas. Same answer from this country's Prime Minister. We can't help you. Well, that is an embarrassment. Our allies are asking for our help to deal with their energy insecurity. We, Canadians, are ignoring them because this government will not accept the reality. It interrupts this government's domestic agenda to shed energy-intensive jobs, not just oil and gas, fertilizer, agriculture, steel, cement, mining and materials, and manufacturing. These are all being done offshore now. We're pushing them offshore because of bad economic policies in this country. We're failing Canadians. The end result is clear. We're going to fail them further. Will somebody on the government side of the House, I don't know who that is at this point in time, stand up and address what the real answer is, and please be transparent with Canadians about the cost you're thrusting upon them as they lose their jobs. Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Deputy Prime Minister and to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'd like to take a brief moment to wish my wife, Ravi, and my two daughters, Nova and Solar, a very happy Valentine's Day. As a Valentine's Day gift to my friend from Calgary Centre, I've prepared a record of speeches I've given on the subject of global inflation and carbon pricing in the last 5 months. Starting in 2022, we have September 20th, September 27th, October 25th, October 26th, November 14th, November 29th, and December 5th. You can also reference January 31st, which was just over 2 weeks ago. If he is interested in reviewing those 16 speeches, I would be happy to answer any further questions that he might have. I also think it's important for my friend's constituents to know that even though his Conservative Party refused to pass a resolution acknowledging that climate change is real, that he, in fact, did campaign for a price on pollution just in the last election. Unlike our government's plan, which is revenue neutral, fights climate change, makes life more affordable for 8 out of 10 Canadian families, his plan actually cost more, did less, and actually forced all Canadians to adopt a government-controlled bank account where his Conservative Party would dictate what you could or could not spend your money on. Now, I know that all sounds outrageous, but it's also very real, and I encourage all residents of Calgary Centre to look it up. Inflation is also real, and it's important that we take action to reduce it. And my friend probably wants you to think that the main cause is our revenue neutral price on pollution. But that doesn't really pass the smell test. You see, in British Columbia, we've had a price on pollution since 2008. It's been provincially administered. So where was the record inflation in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, etc.? In fact, if you look at BC generally, we were not only the first province to implement a price on pollution, we actually had the fastest growing economy in the country at the same time. And part of that story is, in fact, that clean tech companies disproportionately located in British Columbia. This has created thousands of good, high-paying, sustainable jobs and generates billions of dollars in annual revenue. And I think those same sustainable jobs can grow just as quickly in Alberta as well. In 2019, more than 3 years ago, the price on pollution added 9 cents to a liter of gas in British Columbia. Today, it's 11 cents. That's an increase of 2 cents per liter over the last 3 years. Of course, gas prices have surged more than $1 per liter at the same time. My friend wants you to believe that that increase is tied to pricing pollution, but he ignores 98% of the real problem. He ignores the effect of the pandemic, and he ignores the effect of Putin's illegal war in Ukraine. Now, I understand the desire of Conservatives to ignore what is happening in the world with global inflation, but the truth is that Canada's inflation rate is 6.3%, which is lower than the US, Europe, and the OECD. It is still too high, of course, and that is why we are putting in place programs that help make life more affordable for Canadians. Our affordability program has already provided support to seniors, students, to families who need it the most, and sadly, Conservatives are trying to take those supports away. In fact, they're putting pressure on the government to take pension money away from seniors, to take child care away from parents, to take the CBC away from Canadians, and to take dental care away from poor children under the age of 12. The problem with ignoring the facts or making improper assumptions is that it usually forces you to make bad policy decisions. I suspect that is what is happening within the caucus of the official opposition, and the reason why contemporary Conservative policy is so reckless. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Centre.
Well, I thank my colleague for the narrative there, although I don't think it was all a response at all to my question. In fact, the narrative about the Parliamentary Budget Office and how much the Canadians are actually paying, I think you should actually read that report, because it actually shows that in my province alone, the net fiscal and economic effects are about over $2,000 average per family. But I'll encourage him to read that and actually read it in the floor of the House of Commons here, but I know he won't do that. I all know the narrative here. The narrative, of course, is we're doing better. We're charging Canadians more. They're paying more for everything, but don't worry about it. It's not our fault. It's somewhere else in the world. Well, we are contributing to that problem. We are moving jobs offshore consistently in this country. The reality that this government seems to try to skid over here is that carbon taxes, if they're applied on their own, are designed to be inflationary. They make everything cost more. That is their effect. If you'd like to address how this is the reality versus what his intended outcome is, I'd be happy to hear it. But right now, the end is meeting exactly what he's supposed to be doing. Thank you.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Canadians can count on our government to continue supporting those who need it the most while carefully managing our finances and protecting our environment. We have a responsible fiscal plan, the lowest net debt and deficit in the G7, and a AAA credit rating. And we have created more than 800,000 jobs since the pandemic. As we prepare for the federal budget, Canadians can rest assured that we will continue to position Canada for success while ensuring that our most vulnerable get the support they need, while keeping our finances on a sustainable, long-term fiscal track. Thank you, Madam Speaker.